Perfect. What's going on, everybody? This is Torque members Nick Mask and Andy Doobie, and we are doing the map review for Puebla this next week. It's the third stop in the National Series, and so we're just going to break down how we think this thing's going to go. How are you doing, Annie?
Doing well, getting really excited about this. The map is out and it looks exciting. Like there's some obstacles that there's a couple I've never done. There's a couple that I've only done a handful of times a few years ago, and then um, the rest looks familiar. So I think it will be interesting for sure.
It's a good mix. I agree. I haven't been doing the sport long enough to see all of these, and I think a lot of newer runners are going to go into this and do like two or three things for the first time. But I also like how they kind of weaved it together. So if you're doing the beast course, you're going to be doing majority of the sprint and the super course as well. So the overlay on this is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, I'm excited to see it in person, but I guess we can walk through kind of how this thing starts, the middle, and the end, because there's a lot to unpack in this. So my first impressions, and then I'll jump to you and see how you feel about the beginning here, is just talking about the first 3 miles. You start with the very stereotypical wall, wall, wall,
Mhm.
um, and then it's a ton of running. So if you look at the map, it's kind of small in this view, but you can get a PDF of it and kind of zoom in. Mile one, you hit the walls at half mile in, and then it's pure running until the beginning of the fourth mile, where you're going to hit a log carry.
Mhm.
And from what I can tell, this looks like a super long carry.
Is
Um,
it this like loop right here?
if it's that loop, my guess is it's about 450 meters.
Okay.
If you use like a scale, like a one-to-one scale of their mile markers to that loop, it's about 450 meters. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm biased because I'm a smaller guy, but like hopefully it's not that long of a carry.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
that's really what's interesting is that's really the only, in my opinion, rhythm breaker for the first 8 miles of this course,
Yeah. Um,
which
yeah,
is
I mean, I
insane.
feel like the only other things would be like stairway, and
Yeah.
the 10-foot wall maybe for some of the women, but
I should,
really
and
really
really,
only if it's like a wet, muddy day, which it could be.
yeah, I guess 10-foot wall is a mile four. It could be. I'm expecting it to be warm. Maybe that's just where it's located geographically, but I guess it could be wet. It's at altitude, so it might have its own climate there.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
it's the rainy season, and, from what I hear, there's, like, a fog that comes in almost every morning, and then it kinda burns off throughout the day, so very
okay.
similar actually to, like, where I live, like, out on the ocean, like
Oh, I was gonna say it's like the ocean layer in LA.
yeah, exactly, so, like, in June, we have this, like, misty, kinda
I was just there. Yeah, I
humid
saw it. It's weird.
condition,
It's super gloomy, and then you just see it burn off by noon.
and then it'll probably be hot by the time we finish, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, it could make the obstacles kinda dewy, and, it can
Interesting.
be that rain
So
when you do, yeah.
where's the first climbing then? So you're gonna hit Tyrolean Traverse doesn't really count because it's a rope. I'm thinking more metal is where things get slippery. So ape hanger. I've never done it. Is it ropes for the ladder or is it metal?
I believe it's metal. Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, ape hanger, which is in mile seven, looks like the first
Yeah.
real grippy obstacle. So you're over halfway done before you even get to
Mhm.
a grip obstacle, which means you're probably going to be at least an hour into the race. Pretty close. I mean, 7 miles in, depending on how the terrain is and how hard these obstacles are, I'd imagine you're getting close to an hour of running before you even hit some of these more technical obstacles.
Yeah.
But I'm still, yeah. What I'm trying to figure out is how much of this running is going to be good ground because if you ignore the walls and some of the more minor obstacles that people don't usually fail, this is almost 8 miles of running,
Yep.
and then you hit kind of this introduction before miles 11, 12, and 13. And I might be getting too far ahead of myself, but really that's like 2/3 of them. So if you want a TLDR of this race, it's kind of go run 8 miles really hard, and now you have a super dense Spartan
Yeah,
for the final, what is that, 5 miles?
right.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this because I don't really have anybody to talk to about it. What would be your, first of all, what would be your advice for somebody looking at these, this huge open lane of running with the log carry? Do you think this is something where you get out hard and you hit the carry kind of tentatively and go back to running, or are you going to be conservative, knowing this log kind of breaks up the first half?
Um, I think you get out fairly hard. Like it's hard for me to say, not like ever having seen this venue, but
Mhm.
I mean, you do have to account for it is at like 7,500 feet.
That's
So for
true.
those of us that live at sea level, this is gonna be, you
Pretty
know,
brutal.
it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be tough on the lungs. So like, I'd say go out as hard as you feel you could sustain for that first, several miles of open
Mhm.
running. Don't blow yourself up to the point where you're barely getting through the obstacles at the end. But I
Yeah.
would say like, yeah, open it up on the parts that you can, and then it's hard to say from the map what this log carry is going to be like, if
Yeah.
it's going to be technical or like I can't even the elevation profile is so small, I can't even tell if that's like a hill or not. But
I couldn't even look when I had a full expansive view of the map, I couldn't tell.
my guess is that it's something like there's a reason why they're putting that loop right there. So
That's a
I'm
good
guessing
point.
it's like a dense forest or you know uh like a steep hill or something. There's got to
Yeah.
be like some sort of terrain in there. So I would say, yeah, maybe take a moment to like gather yourself on that if it is that long of a carry,
Mhm.
and then get right back into it. So uh,
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier before we started this course kind of reminded you of West Virginia in years past.
yeah,
I kind of get that vibe too, with like the log being pretty early in this beast,
really.
and
Mhm,
you have a heavy carry, but it's not the bucket, it's not sandbag, it's kind of its own deal.
mhm.
At West Virginia, you had to do it halfway through water, right? Like you
Yep.
went on the brim of a lake, so like you said, there's got to be something. There's going to be some sort of added spice to that obstacle. But you're going to get out of it, and you have a few walls. You have the Irish tables and the ape hanger, and then you're basically in the back half of the race.
Yeah.
So that big green loop, which everyone can see pretty clearly on the map there. That's kind of part one, and it's compromised running pretty much. You're just tired and you run, and then you hit mile 9, and it's everything else, starting with the balance beam, which I don't know the last time Spartan Race did one of these. I've never done one.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I don't know how high it is off the ground. I don't know how long it is, if it's how wide the footing. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I saw like one photo of what it looked like, and it appeared to me like it starts on an upward incline, and then it like flattens out. It's almost like as if they just had like an extra wall, like an over wall,
Mhm.
and then the top of it is a balance beam. So
Okay.
you're like go on an incline up to that over wall, and then it's a downward incline to get off.
S-
Um,
So rules wise here, I'm assuming you can't use your hands.
yeah,
Like I don't
I
know.
don't
I'm gonna have to
know.
go back and read the rule book. I I don't do this very often before races, but that might be a good thing to know.
It would
If
be
the hands can touch it, and two, at what point have you completed it? Like, can you just jump when
right.
you are able to get it, or do you have to like touch? Is there a bell? Like, huge unknown for me.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it
So
seems like what's even the point if you could just jump off? Um,
yeah, like I might just be long jumping after a few steps, just build up speed and before
yeah,
balance kicks in. I don't know. It's interesting though because you're going to hit this balance beam pretty fatigued. Like if you're not tired a little bit, at least 9 miles into this race, I think if you're doing the beast, I guess we're mainly talking about the beast here because that's the race that's going to be in the North American Series. But It's in the other, I believe, balance beam is in the other. It's in the super. So
I'm
I
trying to
suppose you're
see
midway
if you
through
can
that
find it
too.
on this. So I see where ape hanger is, and then
Yeah, so balance beam is obstacle um
10.
10. Okay.
For
Yeah.
some reason, I see 12, but I don't see 10. Um,
It's yeah, it's the fourth one in the
oh
super.
yeah,
So
it's okay. So there's a ton of running in between ape hanger and balance beam.
oh yeah, you have
Like
almost a mile and a half,
yeah.
maybe
So
maybe a
once you
little.
get through ape hanger, like maybe just like have it on your mind that it's like coming up, but you still have over a mile to go.
Yeah, for sure. You have time, and that's really the last section of open running you're going to have for this race because it is packed on the back 5K. The back 5K of this race is uh, insane, and it includes some stuff that if you've never done before, you're going to want to know what to do when you get to it. There's your typical Spartan obstacles after the balance beam. You have cargo nets, Z walls. There's a plate drag, inverted walls. Mile 11 is interesting. So you get to mile 11 and there's two carries in it. One at the
Back
beginning.
to back.
Yeah, it's and not even at the beginning and the end. They're back to back, right? It's bucket carry, you do a barbed wire crawl, and you get right back up into a sandbag carry. Um, so
That's
yeah, definitely don't
17.
torch yourself before that point.
So it looks like, yeah, it's hard to tell, but I imagine that's probably like a half a mile between those two.
Yeah, and it's gonna feel like nothing. It's gonna feel like you just took the bucket down and you're picking up a sandbag, I imagine.
Yeah.
So that's a really tough mile in terms of legs and just core, keeping
Yeah.
yourself upright. All that running into really slow, heavy carries, I feel like is going to be it's going to break a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, so that's mile one of the final 5K gauntlet, and then they kind of pack mile 12, but I think aside from the regular things you see, the important thing is there's a swim.
Yes.
Um, and if people have never done a swim before, I'll give you my my first-hand take. The only swim I've ever done in a Spartan race was West Virginia at the North American Champs in like 2019, I think. And I was having a stellar race for me. And I got to the swim, and I thought it'd be a good idea to do freestyle the whole way. And for me, and maybe this isn't the case for everyone, but when you flutter kick for that long, I don't know how long the swim will be, you're locking your quads out the whole way. And so it's a really good idea to switch swimming styles at least a little bit at some point, because when I got out of the water at West Virginia, my quads did complete cramps for
Yeah.
the entirety of the race. I think I crawled like 800 meters after that, and I had to like straight leg walk another
Oof.
half mile. But your race is over if you cramp coming out of the
Yeah.
swim with what is to come in this race. So word of advice for anyone who's never done the swim: change up the strokes, like breaststroke, backstroke, freestyle. Like, don't do the same thing the whole time.
Yeah, I think that you can really like overtax yourself on the swim without
Mhm.
realizing it. Muscular, like it's for me. I'm trying to remember. I want to say for me, it was like my calves that were giving out the most right after because I remember like getting out of that swim and you feel like you're weighing 100 more pounds with like wet
Mhm.
shoes and stuff, and then you go straight up that little steep hill.
Yeah,
And I just remember that feeling like a massive climb, even though it was like probably 50 feet,
it was
um,
nothing.
just because you're wet. And like, yeah, I think as soon as you get out of that water, just like maybe like take some, take a gel, like get some water in you and like reset. And then
Yeah, even if
like,
I'd say before, like I tried that, I had gels with me and I tried to pop one after the swim and it was too late. It didn't matter
or
at that
yeah,
point. Like
maybe even
fueling
before.
fueling correctly might be important on this one with how front end loaded it is with running into really muscularly demanding uh,
Totally.
exercises back to back to back. People are going to get caught. Like this will be a very exciting back half, I think, because obstacle proficiency is at an all-time high when they're this close together.
Mhm.
And that's not even talking about the last mile where I was writing lines of like what each mile had, and I got to mile 13 and I just ran out of space and had to start going down the page. I was like, oh, it's not even half of them. There are, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and fire jump. If you count fire jump, 9
Mhm.
obstacles in the last mile.
Wow.
That's
What
almost
is the
one.
total mileage on this? Is it over 13?
It looked like exactly 13.1 according to
Okay.
the map. I don't know how much you can trust it, but it
Yeah.
looked really close. If that's the case, that means you're going to have one average out to every 150 meters. You have an obstacle.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's packed. This is starting with Twister Monkey Twister, which
Mhm.
is new to me.
Mhm.
But have you ever done an extended rig before?
Yes, I did it in Tahoe, I believe.
How
Yeah.
much different are they than just like a regular multi-rig or twister? Like, how much harder is it?
Um, I actually think it's like compared to a typical beast, like a long twister where it's like 3 bays, I
Mhm.
actually think that Twister Monkey Twister is easier in a way because I think the twister part's the hardest. Like the
Yeah.
monkey bars, you're like resting essentially. You just have
Depending on
to kind of
the
like,
depending on the wetness, though, I think twist
oh,
when it's wet out, twister seems to be slightly easier because the bars are smaller, and monkey
mm,
bars, they're so wide and spaced. It depends on your style, I suppose.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Typically, monkey bars seem to be easier than the motion of twister.
Yeah, it just like make sure you're like transitioning smoothly because
Mhm.
like you're obviously going from like different you're going from like an overhand grip to like a side grip.
Yeah.
That could trip people up maybe.
And a lot of people like to go through Twister backwards.
Right.
So going backwards through Twister now is awkward because you have to transition 180 to a monkey bar and then
Twice.
come
Yeah.
back to it backwards. I like it because I overhang Tarzan swing on Twister anyway.
Mhm.
So it'll transition to the monkey bars pretty well. But if you like going sideways or backwards, it's going to be some
Yeah,
added transition pieces there.
totally. Mhm.
Um, then we have your, typical dunk wall, slip wall, and with 800 meters left in the race, there is a spear. We do not know if it's a penalty loop or if it's burpees. Um, this is such a bittersweet place to put it. It's a lot like Big Bear, where
Mhm.
it's, I mean, if you hit it, it doesn't matter. So it's a 20-second obstacle, but a missed spear here is tough because there's not a lot of room left. There's not a lot of real estate to really reel anybody back in who passes you. But on the other hand, if they put it in mile 2 and you miss it, you're kind of torched.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle with the spear because it's like, what
Yeah.
is a good place for it? Like, I
You and
guess
I both missed in Big Bear too, so we know that.
yeah.
I
I
think
always stress about it being at the end just because like, it ends up, like, being on my mind the entire
I
race
think
versus,
about
like,
it too
early
much.
yeah,
Exactly.
earlier on, like, if something bad goes wrong, then you just, like, self-correct and, like,
hmm
play out the way that, it's gonna play out versus, like, at the end, it's like everything's riding on how the spear goes.
I would love to see it at mile 1, the end of mile 1, and have it be a short penalty loop.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you're set back, 100 meters, but at least you have 12 miles to figure it out.
right.
Whereas this is like, oh, you worked really hard and you ran a perfect race, and there's 800 meters left, and you just dropped 10 spots, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
That it's brutal. I hope they at least make it a penalty loop. I think it'd be more exciting, but I think with how clustered these obstacles are, there's no way.
Yeah, I haven't I'm trying to think, like, if they've ever have they done a penalty loop on a spear yet?
They said they would for San Luis Obispo, and then they
They
changed it the
changed it.
morning of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know, but advice there, I guess, is hit your spear because
Yeah.
you're not even done after that. You still have like 7 obstacles left. That goes right into Olympus and then A-frame. I do like the rope. The rope is like right at the end. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's such a like a lot of people struggle with the rope late in races. It's a pretty demanding
Well, it can
climb.
your calves can go on the rope, so
I've had my calves go on rope and box. Anything that you have to jump to get on. That yeah, I think cramping is going to be a big deal here.
Especially, yeah, post swim, like, all these are risky. I think.
Yeah, and post swim, you're still talking about like 8 obstacles, benders right after swim, so you're immediately jumping and
Yeah.
climbing into something.
Be careful on that one. I've got bad on Bender, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You don't God, it's so tough. I don't even know how to advise people to race differently to not cramp. It seems like it comes with the sport that
yeah.
you just have to kind of either be used to that load or it's gonna happen.
The good thing is this is not, I mean, elevation-wise, this is so, like, low key compared to most of the courses we're used to, so
Yes.
maybe, like, I don't know, maybe we're getting a break here with, like, the terrain seems like not super challenging compared to, like,
Yeah.
a West Virginia, and then it's elevation-wise, it's, like, flat compared to, like, a Big Bear, so
Yeah, definitely. I've heard rumor that it's a very mild course in terms of technical running and elevation gain during the run. Obviously, this is at like in the sky.
altitude.
Um, but yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be watered down West Virginia is how it's going to feel. So
Yeah.
if you've ever done that, this is going to be flatter, faster West Virginia.
Mhm,
Hopefully drier. We'll see.
mhm.
With that fog layer, you won't know till the morning of, but yeah, that looks like that's it as a whole. Is there anything that sticks out to you that you feel like needs to be needs to be covered?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting layout, with this, like, huge loop of, like, pretty much just running and then,
Yeah.
a ton of obstacles on the back half, but, like, I definitely feel excited about it. I think it's something different, like, it's a new venue, new obstacle or, like, old obstacles brought back, and,
Mhm.
I think I don't know, I'm excited. I think it will be good to see, like, how a course like this plays out with the competition.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a viewership standpoint, at least if they get good coverage of it, like there's going to be a ton of changes in leads, maybe not even with just the front, but like the entire top 20 on both sides. You're going to see a lot of exchanging because
Right.
every 3 miles there's a different style of competition from, running to carries to swimming to climbing. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's, like, I think the overall, I think this is a very, like, runner, friendly course. Like, if
Mhm.
you're fast and can deal with altitude, like, you're probably gonna do pretty well here, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of things that could trip you up right at the end where
Yeah.
someone who's not as strong of a runner, could definitely have the opportunity to catch the fast people towards the end. So I would say, like, even if you're maybe not in, like, the top by the time you get to mile 8, 9, like, don't give up because there's a
Mhm.
lot
Yeah.
of racing left to do, a lot of obstacle racing left to do. So,
Yes.
like, keep your head in the game through all of that for sure.
I did this for Big Bear too, and it didn't quite go my way in terms of thinking, oh, plenty of people are going to fail. But in this one, yeah, even with a mile to go, there's so much left
Yeah.
that no matter where you are, you could be 5 spots ahead in like a minute. You
Yeah.
don't know where people are going to fatigue, and I think people are going to have to ask themselves, do I go out hard and run away and suffer the back half, or do I kind of keep my cool and try to stay composed through this gauntlet that's 4.5 miles long? And
Yeah,
the people who go out hard, just remember there's a price to pay at the end. So people can come
totally.
back too late.
I'm definitely anticipating, at least on the women's side, like, a lot of separation early on,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping that maybe, like, maybe they'll start us pretty close to the men just because
That's
in
great when they do
in
that.
races, like, in the past that were laid out like this, like a West Virginia, a lot of us end up just running on our own, and, like, it
It,
becomes tough in those, like, middle miles where you're like, "Shit, like, I don't know, like, is someone close behind me?" Like, it's, like,
mhm.
hard to tell, especially when you're running through, like, forests and stuff, so I
It,
hope I'm
yeah,
hoping that, like, we'll be, like, closer to the men this time.
I hope it's just like kind of like Big Bear was like 30 seconds after they
Yeah,
departed.
it was really
Yeah,
close, yeah.
that'd be great. I think Honestly, I mean, the women in the sport are good enough that we should just start together. Like,
Yeah.
I for
Especially in
anyone.
a course like this where there's nothing to bottleneck, like, it's so open.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And some of the women are going to prefer to run with like the men that we're talking about who don't want to, go out too hot in the first 8 miles. Like that, some of the women are just faster, and
Yeah,
that's going to be way more helpful to have a pack or at least a few people to run with than, like you said, to be alone for this entire race. You could be in no man's land for the entire race
totally.
if you're, especially the worst part is the better you are, because the separation really does happen in those top 5 spots a lot of times, and you see people just being able to run away from everyone, and now you're in a really tough place.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it looks fun though. I agree. I think it will be a really fun venue. They have a lot of new stuff, and I'm excited to do it. So
Me too, yeah. I mean, I could do without the swim, but I'll put up with
I think
it.
everyone could do without it. I'm just happy it'll be a warm swim. Like if this were in the fall and it wasn't in Mexico and it were like, I don't know, like a like Seattle. Oh,
Yeah,
ugh. The swim, it's not even a swim, it's just like a waist deep wade. It's terrible. So at least the water will be warm.
this looks like it's gonna be a long swim too. I think it's gonna be like a West Virginia.
This is just a triathlon. If anyone's This is an Ironman. That's what we're doing. We're doing an Ironman next week.
Uh,
Cool. All right. Well,
alright,
I think that pretty much wraps up the course. Yeah, I don't have anything else to touch on. So cool.
cool.
This is my first time leading one of these, so I'll figure out a way to post it to YouTube. I don't need Rich. All right.